Hello, brothers, and welcome to Sigma Old Man channel. Silence is only frightening to those who have something to hide. It's ironic, isn't it? The quietest person in the room often knows the most, and when they finally decide to speak, the whole dynamic shifts. A single sentence can leave loudmouths scrambling, egos bruised, and secrets laid bare like an overturned poker table. Here's a fact. Research shows that introverted men, often labeled as the silent types, are far more observant and strategic in conversations than their louder counterparts. Now, amplify that by 100 and you've got the Sigma male, the man who lets everyone else make noise while he gathers every detail. But here's the twist. When a Sigma male breaks his silence, it's not just words coming out, it's insight so sharp it could cut steel. And just like that, the loudest voices in the room suddenly sound like static. If you've ever wondered what it looks like when the quiet guy flips the script, buckle up. Spoiler alert. It's not pretty for anyone who thought his silence meant weakness. Number one, he stirs both admiration and intimidation. When a Sigma male finally speaks, his words hit differently because they're not weighed down by the need to impress or seek approval. His energy is a strange mix of admiration and intimidation. On one hand, people can't help but respect his clarity, his calm demeanor, and his ability to say exactly what needs to be said without second-guessing himself. On the other hand, there's something unsettling about how effortlessly he operates outside the typical rules of social engagement. He doesn't crave applause, doesn't ask for validation, and definitely doesn't bend his opinions to fit the room. That kind of self-sufficiency can make others uncomfortable. It's not just what he says, it's how he says it. There's no filler, no pandering, no fluff to soften the blow. His words carry weight because they're rooted in truth, and truth is often a bitter pill to swallow. People admire him for it, even if they feel exposed in the moment. They can sense he's not out to humiliate anyone. He just doesn't sugarcoat reality to make it more digestible, and that, in itself, is a rare and powerful trait. The intimidation comes from his detachment. He doesn't care if people agree with him or not. There's no attempt to win favor, no need to be liked. That kind of freedom unnerves those who rely on external validation to feel secure. It makes them wonder how someone can operate so independently, so unaffected by the noise around them. His presence is a quiet storm. People are drawn to it, but they also know it's not something they can control. It's that balance of respect and fear that makes a Sigma male impossible to ignore once he speaks. Number two, the room adjusts to his energy. When a Sigma male breaks his silence, it's not loud or dramatic, it's quiet power in its purest form. The moment he starts speaking, the entire room seems to recalibrate. Conversations stop mid-sentence, side chatter fades, and all eyes instinctively shift toward him. It's not that he forces attention, it's that his presence commands it. There's an unspoken understanding in the air. When someone who rarely speaks finally does, it's because what they're about to say carries weight. The shift in energy is palpable. People lean forward, not wanting to miss a word. Even the most dominant personalities, the ones who usually monopolize conversations, suddenly find themselves shrinking into the background. There's no need for him to raise his voice or demand respect. It's given freely, almost as if everyone collectively realizes they've been operating at a surface level until now. What makes this dynamic even more powerful is the contrast. His silence up until that moment wasn't passive, it was intentional. He wasn't just sitting there, he was listening, observing, dissecting everything being said. And now that he's chosen to speak, it's clear that every word has been carefully considered. His input doesn't just add to the conversation, it redirects it entirely. Interrupting him doesn't even cross anyone's mind. It's not because he's intimidating in an aggressive way, it's because the sheer focus and clarity in his tone make interruptions feel foolish. His energy fills the room in a way that no one else's does. It's not about dominance, it's about presence. The kind that lingers long after he's finished speaking, leaving everyone in the room to wonder why his silence suddenly feels so much louder than their words ever did. Number three, people realize they've underestimated him. The silence of a Sigma male often fools people into believing he's uninvolved, unengaged, or even uninterested. To them, he's just the guy in the corner, keeping to himself, seemingly detached from the flow of conversation or the group dynamic. What they don't realize is that his silence isn't a void, it's a vault. While others are busy talking, he's collecting information, piecing together patterns, and forming insights that most would miss entirely. When he finally speaks, the shock is almost comical. The same people who dismissed him as indifferent suddenly realize they've been sitting next to someone operating on an entirely different level. His words cut through the noise, revealing perspectives no one else had even considered. It's not just what he says, it's the precision and depth behind it. People who were too busy trying to dominate the conversation find themselves blindsided by the quiet guy who just redefined the entire narrative in one move. It's a humbling moment for everyone involved. The loud ones realize their noise never masked their lack of substance. The skeptical ones realize they grossly underestimated him. And the ones who thought they held the upper hand suddenly find themselves outmaneuvered, like chess players who didn't even see the checkmate coming. The beauty of it all is that the Sigma male doesn't revel in this moment. He's not out to prove a point or embarrass anyone. He's simply contributing what he knows to be true. But the impact is undeniable. His silence, once dismissed as passivity, is now seen for what it really was: deliberate observation and restraint. It's a lesson no one forgets, and one they'll think twice about overlooking again. Number 4. He silences the loudest voices without raising his own. When a Sigma male speaks, he doesn't need volume or aggression to dominate the conversation. His calm, measured tone does all the heavy lifting. While the loudmouths in the room rely on theatrics and bluster to assert themselves, he dismantles their entire approach with nothing more than a well-timed sentence. It's like watching someone pop a balloon with a needle, swift, clean, and impossible to ignore. The real power lies in the contrast. While others are practically tripping over themselves to be heard, he remains unshaken. His composure is unrelenting, and it amplifies the ridiculousness of those who rely on shouting matches and exaggerated gestures to make a point. Their volume suddenly feels like desperation, and their arguments, no matter how passionate, lose credibility in the face of his quiet confidence. What makes it worse for the loudmouths is that he doesn't even engage in their game. He doesn't interrupt, raise his voice, or match their energy. He simply waits for the right moment, delivers his insight with precision, and leaves it at that. No drama, no unnecessary explanations, just the truth served cold. And in that moment, the loudest voices in the room find themselves silenced, not because he outshouted them, but because he made them irrelevant. It's a humbling experience for anyone who thought noise equated to power. His presence alone forces people to reconsider their approach, and his ability to silence chaos without ever losing his cool is nothing short of masterful. It's the kind of quiet dominance that doesn't just command respect, it demands it. And those who thought their loudness gave them control are left grappling with the realization that sometimes the loudest person in the room is also the weakest. Number 5, people feel exposed. His ability to read people and situations is terrifying. When a Sigma male speaks, it's not just words, it's a revelation. His uncanny ability to read people and situations makes him feel less like a participant in the room and more like an observer who's seen right through the facades. He's the kind of person who notices the things others are too distracted to hide, and when he finally chooses to share his perspective, it's like a spotlight being shone directly on everyone's vulnerabilities. His words have a way of stripping away the pretense, the jokes people tell to mask their insecurities, the bravado they use to cover their doubts, the calculated statements meant to impress. All of it feels hollow in the face of his insight. He doesn't have to call anyone out directly, but his observations often feel so precise that they hit uncomfortably close to home. It's not that he's trying to expose people, it's just that his honesty doesn't leave room for the layers they've carefully built to protect themselves. What makes this even more unsettling is that he delivers these truths without judgment. He's not accusing, criticizing, or belittling anyone. He's simply stating what he sees. And yet it's impossible not to feel vulnerable in that moment. It's as if he's opened a door you didn't even know existed, letting everyone, including yourself, see what's behind it. This is what sets him apart. While most people tiptoe around hard truths, he confronts them head-on, forcing everyone else to do the same. It's a rare kind of power, one that doesn't rely on force or manipulation, but on an unshakable ability to see things as they truly are. And for those who've been hiding behind their masks, his words feel less like a conversation and more like a reckoning. Number 6, he leaves on his terms. Once he's said what needed to be said, he doesn't linger. When a Sigma male speaks, he doesn't stick around to bask in the aftermath or let his words devolve into unnecessary debate. Once he's delivered his insight, he knows his job is done. There's no need for applause, no craving for validation. He's not there to impress anyone or prove a point beyond what's necessary. He says what needs to be said, drops the mic in his own subtle way, and exits without fanfare. This departure isn't dramatic, it's deliberate. He's mastered the art of leaving on his own terms, ensuring his message lingers far longer than his physical presence. People are left stunned, replaying his words in their minds, trying to dissect the weight and implications of what he just said. His exit adds to the mystique, creating a vacuum where his silence now feels louder than the noise that surrounded him before. The beauty of this is that it shifts the focus away from him and back onto his message. He's not interested in being the center of attention or engaging in back and forth arguments that dilute the power of his words. By stepping back, he forces others to sit with the truth he's just handed them, leaving no room for deflection or distraction. His absence makes people realize just how intentional his presence was. It's not just what he says, but how he operates, efficient, purposeful, and entirely on his own terms. And as the conversations continue without him, his influence remains. People may try to fill the void he leaves, but it's futile. The room still feels like it belongs to him even when he's gone. Number 7, he redefines the narrative. When a Sigma male speaks, it's not just an opinion, it's a shift in perspective. He doesn't join conversations to echo what's already been said or to align himself with popular beliefs. Instead, his input acts like a reset button, dismantling the comfortable ideas people cling to and challenging them to see things from an entirely different angle. It's not that he tries to be contrarian for the sake of it. He simply operates on a wavelength where superficial thinking has no place. His words often land like a quiet bomb. People may not realize it immediately, but the ripple effect begins as soon as he finishes speaking. Long-held assumptions suddenly feel flimsy, and those who thought they had the topic all figured out are left re-evaluating everything. He introduces nuance, depth, and logic that others overlooked, and whether they admit it or not, it changes the way they approach the subject from that point forward. What makes this even more compelling is that he doesn't force his perspective on anyone. He lays it out with calm confidence, leaving it up to others to wrestle with the implications. But the thing is, once his narrative is on the table, it's impossible to ignore. It's like a new lens has been added to the conversation, and no one can unsee the clarity it provides. This ability to redefine the narrative is part of what makes him so magnetic and frustrating at the same time. People admire his insight, even if it disrupts their comfort zone. It's not always easy to accept, and it might even bruise a few egos along the way. But the truth he brings to the table is undeniable. Conversations may continue after he's spoken, but they'll never be the same, and deep down, everyone knows it. Number 8, truth bombs leave the crowd staggering. When a Sigma male decides to speak, his words don't just land, they detonate. There's no sugarcoating, no softening the edges to make them easier to swallow. He doesn't waste time dressing the truth in pleasantries because he knows that sometimes the raw, unfiltered version is exactly what people need, even if it's the last thing they want to hear. His statements cut through the noise, hitting straight to the heart of the matter with the precision of someone who's been silently observing the cracks in the foundation all along. What makes his truth bombs so staggering is that they don't come from a place of malice or arrogance. They come from clarity. When he calls out hypocrisy, it's not to humiliate, but to expose the double standards everyone else was tiptoeing around. When he dismantles flawed logic, it's not to flex his intellect, but to ensure the conversation doesn't drown in nonsense. And when he says what no one else dares, it's because he values honesty over comfort. The aftermath of his words is a mix of awe and discomfort. People are left stunned, not just by what he said, but by the fact that it needed to be said in the first place. Some will try to brush it off or deflect, but deep down, everyone feels the impact. It's the kind of truth that lingers, forcing them to question their own assumptions actions, or beliefs long after the moment has passed. His delivery is so calm and matter-of-fact that it makes the weight of his words hit even harder. He's not emotional, defensive, or argumentative. He's simply honest. And that's what leaves the crowd staggering. The undeniable realization that while everyone else was busy skirting the edges, he went straight for the core, leaving no escape from the reality he just unveiled. Number 9. He doesn't care about winning the argument. When a Sigma male speaks, it's not about winning. He's not looking for approval, nor is he interested in scoring rhetorical points. In fact, his detachment from the need to be validated is what makes his words hit so hard. He doesn't care if people agree with him or not. He's not looking to change minds or make friends. He's there for one reason: to express his perspective clearly, then move on. This indifference to the outcome of a conversation creates a level of authenticity that's almost unnerving. He doesn't pander to the crowd or try to convince anyone of his point of view, and it's that very lack of agenda that makes him so powerful. Without the pressure to win or convince, his words carry a weight that people can't ignore. They're not tangled in emotion or performance, they're simply the truth, and the silence he leaves afterward is a testament to that. Because he doesn't care about winning the argument, it removes all the drama that typically accompanies debates. No one's left scrambling to get the last word because, frankly, he's already moved on. His stance is solid and his words were delivered with a kind of quiet authority that doesn't need to be followed up with anything else. This is what makes him an enigma. He's not interested in the process of winning a conversation. He's focused solely on making his point. And once that's done, he has no desire to linger. People can argue amongst themselves for hours, but it's never about him. It's about what he said. And that's what makes his silence even more powerful. Number 10. His silence suddenly makes sense. When he finally speaks, it's like the missing piece of the puzzle clicks into place. Suddenly, his silence isn't seen as apathy or indecision, but as razor-sharp strategy. While others filled the air with noise, tripping over their own words or trying to outshine each other, he sat back, quietly taking in every detail, every inconsistency, and every flaw in their arguments. His silence was never passive. It was a calculated act of patience. What makes this realization so striking is how effortless it seems. He wasn't battling for attention or scrambling to prove a point. He let others dig their own graves with their overconfidence and rashness. By the time he decides to speak, it's not just to join the conversation, it's to finish it. His words carry the weight of someone who's been silently dissecting every layer of what's been said. And when he finally strikes, it's with precision that feels almost surgical. This shift in perception is humbling for those around him. The people who mistook his quietness for cluelessness or assumed he had nothing to offer suddenly realized they were wrong, wildly wrong. He wasn't silent because he had nothing to contribute. He was silent because he knew the power of timing. And when his moment came, he didn't just speak, he flipped the narrative on its head. In that instant, it becomes clear that the quiet guy wasn't clueless at all. He was the smartest person in the room, playing the long game while everyone else rushed to make noise. His silence wasn't weakness, it was strength in its purest form. And as people scramble to recalibrate their opinions of him, he doesn't even stick around to soak in the moment. For him, the silence always had a purpose, and now so do his words. Silence is not empty, it's full of answers. For a Sigma male, silence isn't just a pause, it's a strategy, a weapon, and a statement all at once. Every moment he spends observing, listening, and analyzing builds toward the rare instances when he chooses to speak. And when he does, it's not for applause or validation, it's to deliver truths that cut through the noise and leave a lasting impact. His words don't follow the usual rules of engagement. They're not wrapped in the need to win, impress, or dominate. Instead, they dismantle egos, challenge assumptions, and force a recalibration of the entire room. He doesn't argue to be heard or linger to explain himself. His power lies in his detachment. He says what needs to be said and walks away, leaving others to wrestle with the weight of his insight. A Sigma male doesn't fill space with empty chatter. Every silence, every word, and every moment of withdrawal is intentional. His ability to read people, expose truths, and shift narratives with calm precision is what makes him a force to be reckoned with. And while others may scramble to reclaim control after his words hit, he's already moved on. unbothered by the chaos he leaves behind. In the end, his silence and his voice are two sides of the same coin, both calculated, both powerful, and both unforgettable. The room always feels different after he speaks, not because he demanded attention, but because his presence and perspective command it effortlessly. Whether people like it or not, his voice lingers long after he's gone, reshaping conversations, perceptions, and sometimes even lives. That's the legacy of a Sigma male breaking his silence. If this insight resonated with you and left you thinking differently, don't keep it to yourself. Hit that subscribe button and join our community for more thought-provoking content. Don't forget to like this video, share it with someone who needs to hear it, and drop your thoughts in the comments. We'd love to hear what you think. Let's keep the conversation going and make sure this energy reaches as many minds as possible. Bye for now and see you in the next video.